What's up? Excuse me. What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing this lovely day? It's your boy here. I'm told you I might do another review, and I was going to do the Rolling Stones, their 14th British album, but their 16th American album. This was released in 1978 on their record label, produced by the Glimmer Twins, aka Mick and Keith. Well, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. The Rolling Stones, you guys should know who they are. In this in this version is Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Bill Wyman, Charlie Watts, and Ronnie Wood. Um, I already reviewed. Let's see, Beggar's Banquet, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, Goat's Head Soup. All four of them. Well, Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed had Ryan Jones there, while the other three had Mick Taylor. Yeah, and I reviewed Tattoo You a while back ago, which also had Ronnie Wood and shit like that. So, and I told you guys that when I got this album, I was going to do a review on it, and what better now than ever. Alright, so singles albums known for are Miss You, which is ironically is playing in the background, Beast of Burden, Respectable, and Shattered. Okay, so this is going to take. So I left back at Ghost Head Soup. So around the time Ghost Head Soup was happening, Keith Richards, he still has dealing with the legal problems, and in 1974 they dropped the "It's Only for Rock and Roll" in that year, which in my opinion is a very slept on record. I mean, they kind of went back to like a more standard rock sound because Ghost Head Soup, they were kind of going experimental. They were like going for this more soul, this polished sound and shit like that, which turned like a lot of fans off. And I'm not really too fond of that record myself, just to let you guys know. And so, It's Only Rock and Roll, that was definitely a dope album and stuff like that. But that was the last album that they've done with Mick Taylor because, Mick Taylor, he wasn't really used to the lifestyle of the Rolling Stones, and he was butting heads with Keith Richards a lot. So he left the band in '74, and they were between '74 and '75. They were looking for a new co-guitarist, and so that's when Ronnie Wood stepped in the picture. Now Ronnie Wood, you guys should know that she was originally, I think, one of the guitarists from the group Faces, which had Rod Stewart in it. I like some of their earlier work. I'm not too keen on their work like that. So in 1976, they dropped Black and Blue, which, in my opinion, not. It was out okay. I might have to re-listen to that, but I wasn't really too fond of that record and shit like that. It was too dis disco-y, do poppy. I might have to re-listen to it and do a full-length review on that. But yeah. Then fast forward to '77, they dropped their first live album. I think it was called. Excuse me. Pull this up. Love You Live and shit like that. And that was the first live album they did since 1970's Get Your Yayas Out and shit like that. And also that same year, Keith Richards was arrested, for drug possession in Toronto. And this was like from my understanding, this was like a very, excuse me, serious case. He could face years up to prison and shit like that. And from what I've looked up, a blind girl basically vouched for Keith, saying he was a good person, and the judge slapped him with performing at some charity concerts in Oshawa and shit like that. That same year, Mick Jagger's marriage ended that year, and the Rolling Stones at that time were they were considered by Mick, they were like considered by many to be like played out, like old and shit like that. So because you gotta remember, like 1977, that was really the year of like the punk rock was coming out. You know, you had the Sex Pistols and the Clash. You had new wave like with Talking Heads and Blondie and all that. So like a lot of rock acts, they were really trying to like either incorporate that sound or they would either went disco and stuff like that. But at the same time, like the Rolling Stones, while Keith was dealing with his legal problem, Mick Jagger kind of like he in a way took over the direction, and that's when this album came out. Yeah, so this album right here. Sorry about that. Yeah. So let's get started. Let's see. So this cover right here, very interesting cover. It basically has like all the members, and what I like about this cover is like it actually, while it actually gives you like the songs and stuff like that throughout the cover. Like you see here, it says "Miss You," then you got like "Imagination" right there, and then like you have back here, because like back in the 50s, like back in the day, the advertisements, if you go into like a strip club, or people called it back in the day like gentlemen's club, you're like they'll have this as advertisements sometimes. So yeah, all right. So 10 songs. You guys should know what I want to do. Track number one, "Miss You." Highly regarded as a fan favorite. One of my favorite Rolling Stones songs ever, and this is basically my favorite song off this project. This song right here is very out. It's kind of like a little different from what you used to hear from the Rolling Stones because it's not like they went disco with this song, but it was like a crossover hit because it was like more bass dominated than any of the other previous songs. Like, and then you hear that bluesy guitar and shit like that, so it kind of gives you that disco feel and shit to it. But there will be interviews where Mick Jagger and even Ronnie Wood would deny if they didn't feel like it was a disco song. So yeah, very dope song. Love this song. Like if you have some good speakers and shit, this is definitely the perfect song to play. Um, the video was dope too. What else? Like it's just definitely a nice way to start off the project. It's like they're still in their roots, but they're still trying new things out. So, very dope song. Track number two, "When the Whip Comes Down." That song kind of goes back to like some of their more darker storytelling because from what I looked up, it's just basically talking about like gay prostitutes in New York, basically like. So, yeah, that's a very interesting song right there. That song kind of got them in some trouble back in the day and shit like that because some of the lyrics were kind of like risque at the time and shit like that. Like it says some shit like, "Yeah, I go to 53rd Street and they spit in my face, but I'm learning the ropes. Yeah, I'm learning a trade. The East River truckers is churning with trash. I've got so much money, but I spend it so fast. Like, yeah, some call me garbage when I'm sweeping up the street, but I never roll and never cheat. And I'm feeling a need, yeah, I'm plugging a hole. My mom is so glad I ain't on the dole." Like, and the way the song was played, it had like a punk feel to it and shit like that. Cause they were living at they were living in New York. I think they believe they relocated to New York, and New York back in the day it was like more grittier and shit like that. Now New York is just all gentrified and shit, but that's another story for a different day. Track number three, "Just My Imagination," "Running Away From Me." Of course, that's the cover of the Temptation song of the same name. This was an okay cover. I wasn't really too keen on this one like that. Ironically, it's playing in the background. I mean, it's a nice like, oh, I know what it was, a nice ode to Motown and stuff like that. But I was just like, could have done without it. Track number 4, Some Girls. One of the most probably like the most controversial song in the canon, arguably one of the most. You know how they always had that one song where they just talk about like raw sex and shit like that. This was basically it, but they went extreme with this one because they had some lines like they wanted to fuck slaves, and they were giving like stereotypes of racial women. Like, I'm gonna read you some of the lyrics. It's the and it has like more of like a sleazy tone, like and shit. It says, let me see. Yeah, French girls they want Cartier. Italian girls want cars. American girls want everything in the world you can possibly imagine. England girls, they're so prissy. I can stand them on the telephone and shit. Like some girl, and then like they will say some shit like some girls give me money, some girls buy me clothes, some girls give me jewelry that I never thought I owned. Basically, it's just, whew. But like a lot of people at that time were criticizing the Stones and shit like that for their it was like disrespect for women and shit. Like civil rights leaders were getting at them. But low key, a lot of some of this shit that people are doing now, like it's more worse today than it was back in the day and shit. But I mean, it's still a little vulgar at back in today's generation, a little bit. But I've heard worse, really. Track number 5, Lies. Um, this was another cool song. It's just talking about a guy being fed up with his girl, lying and cheating and shit, basically that nature. Yeah, that was a pretty alright song. Kind of falls in the same vein as Some Girls in a way. Track number 6, Far Away Eyes. Um, like I said, like in the previous videos, I'm not a big fan of when they try to go for that country route. So, eh. Track number 7, Respectable. One of my favorite songs from this project and shit. Like this one was another one of those like rockers that they were known for. Like it's like one, I think it was like one of the most hardest rocking songs that they've really done in this project and shit. Basically, Respectable is just talking about a woman like who's like a it's like a bougie woman that she thinks like she is so better than everybody else and things of that nature that Mick was all like, you know where you came from. Don't try to act like you are this high and successful. Like, you know where you came from and shit like that. So basically, that's what it's like. Respect your roots and shit like that. That's basically what I got from that song. So yeah, very dope song and shit like that. Track number 8, Before They Make Me Run. That I think that's like a Keith Richards solo, I believe. That's another cool song because he's just basically telling everyone, I don't give a fuck what you guys talk about me and things of that nature and shit like that. I'm gonna live my life the way I want to live. It's my life and shit. And he mentions Graham Parsons in his song too, because like Graham Parsons, I mentioned him, I believe in the Sticky Fingers review. He was closely associated with the Stones at that time and stuff. So, and he died of a drug overdose. So yeah. So yeah. Track number 9, Beast of Burden. That's another one of my favorite songs off this project. Basically, it's just Mick and Keith singing on this track. Like, damn, like another way of their chemistry just together and stuff like that. So, from what I looked up, Beast of Burden was. It's just basically talking about someone who benefits off men, basically. So yeah, excuse me, I'm sorry, my throat's kind of acting all up. So yeah, that's a very dope song. Like that's one of them songs like you play when you're just like driving and shit like that. You just driving, and going on vacation. You just a feel good kind of song in a way. And track number 10, Shattered. That's another cool song right there. That song, I have to be honest with you guys, that song really took me a while to appreciate because this was like more of like a new wave influence song with with the vocals. It has something like some Talking Heads esque vocals and shit. But then over the years, I've come to appreciate it and shit. Definitely another one of them songs like one of them fast rockers that have like a New York City feel to it. And one thing I've realized I never knew, but Ronnie Wood actually played bass on this track. So yeah, very dope. All right, that's all the songs of this project. One of my favorite Rolling Stones albums ever. This album right here is a nice, nice, nice way to come back because this was the best album I would say since Exile, which a lot of people would say. They went back to their roots because it's just like this album was just so bluesy, it was so dirty and shit. Like the bass lines, the productions and shit. Like I would say that this album you can really feel like Ronnie Wood really feeling well in this album better than Black and Blue because Black and Blue it was just basically they played it safe for that album. This one they went back to their roots. They were doing what they do best, bluesy, rock and roll and shit like that. So yeah, very dope album. They re-released this album 2011 and shit, and they added some extra tracks on it. So me personally, I'm just gonna stick with the vinyl because yeah, I think this is actually this is the OG copy. So yeah, must have in your collection. And that's all the time I have. Stay tuned for more. Peace.